Shimmer, magnetic, jelly, hollow. Long ago, the four nail nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Jelly Nation attacked.
What are you doing?
I'm the Avatar. Hello, my children. Your father has brought you a new swatching video. I did the finger gun too soon. One more time. Hello, my children. Your father has brought you a new swatching video. That was the right timing. You burp bended. What kind of bender are you?
Probably a firebender.
No, you're a earthbender because you're sturdy.
Is that a fat joke?
Mooncat just released their final collection of the year, and it's a collab collection with Avatar The Last Airbender. I'm a big fan of the Avatar universe, so this collection really excites me. Ugh, books. Back to the coffee table where you will sit forever. These polishes are limited edition, and at the time of filming this, some are currently sold out. However, Mooncat's limited editions are typically restocked for a period of time. I did reach out to my contact at Mooncat, who said that they are working on a full restock. I do also want to note that due to IP licensing, these polishes are only available in the US and Canada. Anyways, today I'm going to be showing off the cartons and bottles, swatching the new collection, and comparing them to things in my collection. So before Sozin's comment arrives, let's get started. Now, before we get into the swatches, I do want to show off the different limited edition aspects of the packaging. For these polishes, the typical Mooncat cap has been replaced with a gold variant, which obviously I love. Also, the polishes come in special Avatar-themed cartons based on what nation the polish aligns to, and you can see the nation's symbol on the bottle itself as well. And there's also artwork on the inside of the boxes too. As an Avatar fan, I really like these. And I confirmed with my contact at Mooncat that the restock will have the limited edition gold bottle caps and the cartons.
Ooh, while editing this, I realized I talked about a lot of spoilers for Korra and Last Airbender, so apologies. If you haven't seen them, 1, please do, but 2, proceed with caution. Sorry, back to the video.
And first up is Bloodbender. Oh wait! I love season 1 of Korra minus the literal last second. It could have been great. If they knew there was going to be a season 2, then season 2 could have been her getting her bending back and been a much like greater story instead of just, I'm spirit bending. Like, I don't know, I did season 2. We should probably start talking about the polish.
Yeah. This polish is described.
This polish is described as a blue magnetic lacquer that reveals a deep burgundy base when magnetized. I first painted 2 coats unmagnetized so I can see what it looks like before the magnet is applied. This has a really pretty cranberry color with a very... Did you see how Titan was like, hello? Huh? It has this really pretty deep cranberry color with a nice striking blue shimmer, but she was a lot thinner than I expected. As for that second coat, the blue is far more built up and the base color looks almost black on camera, but it is a very deep red. Now there were still some slightly thinner spots on the edges or the tips of the nail, which is why if I was going to wear this unmagnetized, I would do 3 coats. But in this case, I'm going to magnetize the 3rd coat. With the magnet, the blue pigment all pulls into a very thin stripe, revealing that blackened, bloody red color, base color. Bloody red base color. However, I did feel that because the magnetic pigment was all pulled in, it did make the red look a little thinner than I wanted to the further away it was from the magnetic stripe. It's not really a problem head on, but I can see a little bit more of the thinness than I wanted to when I was at more of an angle. Now I do want to say also that the magnetic polishes in this collection seem like they have some of the tightest magnetic stripes I've ever seen. And the last thing I want to say about the magnetic pigment is that it does look like it has slight purple tones at extreme angles, which makes me wonder if it's similar or different from that blue-purple multi-chrome magnetic pigment from the previous collection. I did take another video of it showing it at a different angle with different lighting, which does show that it's a little bit thinner on the edges than I really wanted to, and I don't really love that. It kind of looks like there's paint on the nail instead of a colored nail, if you know what I mean. As for comparisons, I first painted everything unmagnetized and then very unsuccessfully magnetized everything. I think the closest is probably Epilogue to You Utopia, as it has a very similar purpley blue multi-chrome look to it when it's unmagnetized. However, the biggest difference is Epilogue to Utopia is in a black base, while Bloodbender is in the deep oxblood red base. Now, I did attempt to magnetize these polishes by using Tyler's Trinkets Magnetic Elixir. However, I think I didn't apply the magnet quick enough, which is why you can't really see much of an effect here. Additionally, there are several coats of very dried polish on these swatch sticks, so a little bit of magnetic elixir is not going to do much. Now, I did also grab Cirque's Curtain Call, and by I think Nail Husband grabbed this one, because it has a very similar deep bloody cranberry red base color. However, it's way more red and there's far less of the magnetic pigment, so it looks nothing alike. So overall, I liked this one, but I didn't really love it because it had some application issues. Especially when the magnet was applied and pulled the magnetic pigment into one location, it showed a lot thinner spots than I would have liked.
I also had like inconsistent application when I painted it. I particularly like it because I enjoy that there's like such a difference between the base color and the magnetic pigment.
I also think that you can see a lot more of the purple aspect of the magnetic pigment.
I mean, it's not a purple. It's not described as a purple magnetic.
Well, there's purple there, Michelle. Well, it could be the blue plus the red base.
Yeah, I think that that's probably more
colors. So this polish is gonna get 3 bloodbending your enemies underneath the full moon out of 5.
unbothered.
Look, I did it. And moving right along, we have Tales of Ba Sing Se. This is described as a multichrome magnetic lacquer that shifts between yellow and orange and reveals a green base when magnetized. On the first 2 coats, it showed a really pretty deep chartreuse color with what looks like a nice gold shimmer. It's still a little on the thinner side and needed the second coat before the magnet, but it did have better coverage than Bloodbender. Overall, on magnetized, it has this super pretty greeny golden magnetic, maybe darkened chartreuse color, and I really like it unmagnetized. With the magnet applied, the brighter pigment pulls inwards and leaves this blackened green base. Like it got super dark, almost black at the edges of the nail. Now the magnetic stripe is a very greeny golden color, and once again, it was super thin like in Bloodbender. As for comparisons, I grabbed a bunch of greeny gold shiny things. I think unmagnetized, the closest is probably Hollow Taco's Para Don't Bother Me. However, Tales of Ba Sing Se does have a slightly darkened look to it. And once again, I did try to magnetize these swatches, but it didn't really do much besides make it look even further apart from the other polishes in this lineup. I did also grab Mutiny because that is also a multi-chrome green magnetic, but the multi-chrome in Mutiny is a blue-green, while in Tales of Ba Sing Se, it's a yellow golden green. So I like this one as well, but I also think that I like it way more unmagnetized than magnetized. But that's just because I'm lazy. Wait, do you think that like earthbenders could like magnetize the polish for themselves?
I think that waterbenders could paint their nails quicker.
I think my favorite thing about this polish is how aggressively Earth Kingdom this one screams though. As the other Earth Kingdom polish that you'll see later is a touch too shiny to really feel like traditional Ba Sing Se, which this one is named after. So this polish is going to get 3.5 There Is No War in Ba Sing Se out of 5. Moving on, we have Jasmine Dragon. This is described as a bright orange magnetic lacquer filled with color-shifting iridescent yellow to orange to green flakies and red glitter that reveals a burnt orange base when magnetized. Now the magnetic pigment gives this a very pretty warm coppery color, however the flakes are almost the exact same color as the magnetic pigment and are entirely lost when it's unmagnetized. This applied similarly to Tales of Ba Sing Se, but is far more sheer than I expected. However, it still looked good in 2 coats. And looking at it built up to full coverage, it does have a slightly more orange tone than copper, but I do still like it. If I was to wear this unmagnetized again, I would probably wear it in 3 coats, because on the second coat there was still a thinner section in the center of the nail and still a fair amount of visible nail line. This was kind of expected though, because it should be a little bit on the sheerer side in order for the iridescent flakes to show through better. When I magnetize the 3rd coat, the bright orange shimmer is pulled inwards and you can finally start to see the flakies better. This is also also one of the polishes that has the least significant difference between the unmagnetized and magnetized states, as the base color is only slightly darker than it looked unmagnetized. And now that I can finally see the iridescent flakes better, I think I realized I don't really love them as much. I really like the coppery orange aspect, but it feels a little out of place when they shift in the greener side of the spectrum. However, there are what looks like to be little red glitters in this that are really pretty and give the illusion of fire sparks, so I think it's a nice touch. As for comparisons, I immediately thought of Holo Taco's Feeling Sparks, as it felt very similar to me when I first saw this polish. However, putting it next to each other, Feeling Sparks is a lot more deeper brown, while this is more of a brighter orange. Color-wise, I think the closest is probably Holo Taco's Disco Inferno, as it has a very similar bright orange aspect to it. However, formula-wise, I think the closest is Nocturne by Mooncat, as that is also a deepened orangey, reddy, brown magnetic polish with those iridescent flakes. However, Nocturne is a lot darker, probably because it's nocturnal. So I didn't really love this one, not because of its application, but just I think I like Nocturne more, and putting them next to each other just reminded me that I do like Nocturne more. So nothing against this polish, but just my own personal preference. I like browns more than I like oranges, but I do still like oranges, but I don't know, I like Nocturne more.
Tune in.
Hey, stop.
There is no chewing in Bossing Say.
Yes, because there's licking. So I'm gonna give this 3.5 nuggets of wisdom from Uncle Iroh out of 5. And rounding out the first 4 polishes, we have the Avatar State. This is described as a sheer white glow-in-the-dark lacquer filled with blue shimmer that glows bright aqua in the dark. But before I actually start painting this, I did want to say, please ignore the dots on my nail. It came from staining from Winter's Kiss in the previous video. I've never personally seen staining like this, but I don't actually mind because it just looks like my nail is made out of funfetti cake. So we are testing the coverage of a lighter polish, a little bit of a hard mode. Which, speaking of, the coverage was about what I expected in that first coat, however it pulled really unevenly on the nail. There was this large glop of polish on the side that just kind of decided to stay there. I think that this was my fault because I painted too much on the first coat hoping to try to cover the funfetti, and it just fell to the side of the nail. I did have to end up painting 2 more coats here, and I didn't really get to what I would consider full coverage in the end. That said, it is described as a sheer white polish, and so this is just me being bitter about hating any form of sheer polish. It still has visible nail line, but it isn't particularly egregious because that's kind of the intent of the polish. However, I'm not a fan of how it still looks kinda thin in the center of my nail, as I swear I can still see a touch of funfetti underneath. Personally, I'd recommend a blurring base coat under this and/or be more careful on the application. One thing that I did want to add is that typically Mooncat's glow-in-the-dark polish is really glow-in-the-dark, and as such there's this weird textured thing that you notice while applying it. It doesn't feel textured on the nail, but it does almost feel like there's sand in the bottle while you're painting. I did not notice that when I was painting this polish. As for comparisons, I put it next to 2 other white glowy blue polishes in my collection.
But they're not actually polishes that glow.
Yes, they are glowy blue because the blue shimmer glows, not that they are glow in the dark,
Yeah.
Correct. I think the closest is maybe Holo Taco's Swan Song because it has a similar white color, but shimmer-wise, I think Cirque's Mystic Moonstone is probably a little closer. However, its base color is a little bit more gray-leaning. And also, neither of those 2 are glow-in-the-dark polishes.
There's like a visual texture difference though. Look at that texture difference. It looks gritty.
Oh, actually, I take it back. Listen. I didn't notice it while painting it, but it is a little sandpapery on the nail. There's no top coat here, so that was not an issue after I painted the top coat. Probably why I didn't notice it. The last thing I want to say is that it does look like the shimmer in the Avatar State does have a larger pigment size in comparison to the others. So overall, I'm not a fan of this one. I love me some white polish, I love me some glow in the dark, but with it being sheer, it just... I will say I do like the glow. I think it looks very similar to other Mooncat bright glowy polishes. However, I could still see a little bit of the thin patch in the center of the nail. So this polish is gonna get 1.5 chakras that are blocked, preventing you from entering the Avatar State out of 5. Okay, we gotta go. Time for Thanksgiving dinner. Bye! happy we're home? Are you happy we're home? Come back. Come back. I'm gonna take this off though. Continuity.
Oh, like Sokka does with the cactus juice.
Oh God, I can feel all of the Thanksgiving rumbling around in there. And we're back onto the next set of polishes. So here we have Spirit Water. This is a gray to aqua thermal lacquer filled with color shifting iridescent aqua to green flakies that transition from a shade of slate gray when cold to light aqua when warm. On the first coat, it made a super even wash of that slate gray where the iridescent flakes were really popping. Low key, I kind of love it in one coat. However, the moment that it warmed up a little, it showed that it wasn't as even as I initially thought. So full disclosure, this is a new first coat that I'm painting the second coat over because I actually ruined the first coat while I was taking off the next finger as I forgot to film the first coat of that. But the positive is now that I'm warm, you can actually see the shift a little bit better. Now on the second coat, I thought it was at full coverage, but as it warmed up, it was still a touch thin in the set. That was the Thanksgiving dinner.
Do you feel better now?
No. On the second coat, I thought it was full coverage, but as it warmed up, it was still a touch thin in the center, which is why I painted a third coat. And with that, it looked pretty perfect. It was a super duper pretty gradient between the light blue and the slate gray, and the flakes complemented both color states nicely and is a really nice unifying element. However, I do almost wish that it was more blue and less light blue because it looks more like the white grays of the Airbender polishes in this collection, and a little less waterbender. As for comparisons, I grabbed Sagebrush because it's also a thermal polish, and the cold states do look kinda similar. However, Sagebrush is clearly a dark sage green polish. Oh, and it's hollow.
So like...
Not actually close at all. I don't think they ever looked similar, but the Liza Minnelli we tell ourselves. I did also grab Convertible Crush by Cupcake Polish, as it does have a similar vibe to the warm state of Spirit Water. However, Convertible Crush is way more of a bright aqua blue, as opposed to Spirit Water's dusty light blue. So overall, I actually really like this one. My favorite thing about it is that both the color states work really well with the flakes, and just make a really pretty polish. However, as I said, it doesn't feel super Water Tribe-y, because it's a little bit more in the gray, dustier range, as opposed to something that's clearly wet.
God.
Quote, Sabrina Carpenter. So I think despite that, I'm still gonna give this 4 times your girlfriend turned into the moon out of 5. And next up, we have My Cabbages! This is described as a green flaky lacquer jam-packed with iridescent flakies that shift from green to yellow to orange. On the first coat, it has a really even wash of very sheer green. And the flakes, even though they're described as green to yellow to orange, they really look like just straight up gold metallic flakes to me. They say iridescent, but really they look metallic, which is something that I love, so I'm not mad at it. But the base is a very jelly base, so you can still see visible nail line after the second coat. Which is why I painted a third coat, and this is also when the bright green color shows up a lot more. It also has a super reflective, almost mirror-like finish, and a nice little touch of extra sparkle in here, which I really love. I know it's not hollow, and it's probably just how the flakes are layering, but I love the extra little sparkle that I see in this. What I really don't understand is how this is so metallic, even though it says these are iridescent flakes. Now, while these two are not similar polishes in color at all, I did first grab Maelstrom by Mooncat because it seems like it's a very similar formula. They both have a jelly-ish base and these iridescent flakes that pack together to make this metallic look. So My Cabbages kind of feels like the green version of Maelstrom. As for actual comparisons, I don't really have anything like this. Holo Taco's Foiled Again is a green metallic flake polish, so it feels like it could be similar. However, My Cabbages is so much brighter. I did also grab Sylvan Claw's Bryo Fight Me, as it is also a green polish that has some of these orangey flakies in it. However, it's ultimately an entirely different color and has a very different formula.
I still think that polish from Plan B, like, I know that it's like really chartreuse, but I still think that is probably the closest in the collection.
I vehemently disagree, but we'll let them decide. Shh, shh, shh. Stop tapping the bean salad. Okay, Nail Fam, what do we think? I think that a certain someone is very wrong. And a certain other someone wants a snack. What'd you say?
I hope you get ratioed in the comments by people agreeing with me.
We'll see about that. So overall, this one is my favorite polish in this collection because it just has that metallic-y look, and it's so vibrant and green, and it makes me scream my cabbages even if I don't like cabbage.
I don't know, it just tastes like crunchy to me.
No, it
It
doesn't.
kind of occupies like the same space as like bean sprouts in my mind.
Oh, God, I hate bean sprouts. They don't know why I hate bean sprouts. Bean sprouts are lying noodles. If I'm going to have ramen, I want it to have one consistent texture and consistency when it is going down my gullet. And when I bite a single bean sprout while I'm eating it, my brain immediately thinks that is an insect. You just ate a bug, and therefore bean sprouts are horrible. They taste fine. They're lying noodles, and I don't like it when they surprise me. No thank you. So this polish is gonna get 5 Melon Lords out of 5. Moving right along, we have everyone's favorite emo boyfriend, played by Dante Bosco, the Banished Prince. This is described as a red thermal lacquer filled with color-shifting iridescent orange to yellow to green flakies that transition from a shade of dark red when cold to bright red when warm. On the first coat, it actually had pretty decent coverage. However, the very first thing I thought of is this reminds me so much of Simply Deceased by Hollow Taco. You'll see that later in the comparisons. Since it was cold while being applied, I could really only see the cold state, and that dark red looks similar to the base red of Bloodbender, but is a little brighter. When my fingers warmed up before the second coat, I could see a little bit more unevenness, as the warm state is a lot brighter, showing some more of the nail underneath. And okay, she was actually pretty good in 2 coats, even when the thermal shift did its thing. I think the larger iridescent flakes are what helps hide the visible nail line or the thinner spots really well, so that's why I think it's honestly pretty good in 2. It does really scream Simply Deceased though, which, speaking of, putting them side by side, they're not exactly dupes. They are sisters though. In the cold state, they both have a pretty similar base color, however, I will say that Simply Deceased is slightly darker red. Now, the flakes in Banished Prince are a different color from Simply Deceased, as I think they're a little bit more brighter orange and have a little touch of the green side of the iridescent shift. Additionally, Simply Deceased also has a hollow sparkle in it as well. Now, I did also put these next to Rhinestone Cowboy from my collection, because I made it. And it's not actually that similar, but it does have a similar vibe. So if you missed out and really like the cold state of either of these polishes, you can check out Rhinestone Cowboy from the Golden Hour Rodeo collection by Tyler's Trinkets. And now that everything's heated up, they do also still look slightly different. However, to the untrained eye, they might just be 2 red polishes. At Richard. He said he was gonna watch this video. That was at you. For context, Richard was who we were at Thanksgiving dinner with. So overall, I'm a little conflicted on this one because I do like it, but it is really similar to Simply Deceased that it doesn't really feel like it has its own identity to me. I will say I do like the larger flake size because it adds to the flame effect and does hide some of the visible nail line, especially when it's all in the warmer state, which is thinner. And if you missed out on Simply Deceased, this is a pretty close enough dupe. However, you could also get Rhinestone Cowboy if you like the cold state. Buy my polish. Or don't, you have free will. Do whatever you like. Buy the nail polish. It's gonna look really silly when I show them you just like...
Well, I'm small.
You are. So I think I'm gonna give this 3.75 times that Zuko shouted that the scar was on the wrong side of the Ember Island players out of 5. And last up we have... Breath of Wind.
Winter's Kiss.
Winter's Kiss.
Poseidon's Kiss.
Yeah.
But it's snow on your instead of...
This is described as a gray to white thermal lacquer filled with blue shimmer that transitions from a shade of smoky gray when cold to white when warm. On the first coat, this had way better coverage than I was expecting. However, there are still some thin spots in the center of the nail, and the tips of the nail look a little not good. Surprisingly, 2 coats did look really good here. I was not expecting this because the warm state is so bright, but I think the shimmer might have helped, or the fact that the shift of the thermal happens exactly at the visible nail line, kind of hiding the visible nail line in the first place. Now, I will say the tip of the nail does look a touch thin, but I don't think that it's really worth a 3rd coat here. And I really like the blue shimmer as it really ties everything together when it's all one color. However, once again, this one doesn't really scream like the element that it should be, as this one feels very icy as opposed to airy. You just went like this. I guess in fairness though, how does one make an air polish when air is clear? Top coats, that's it. As for comparisons, I think the closest is probably a combination of Mooncat's Castle of Cobwebs and Tyler's Trinket's Bold and Beautiful. Both of them are on either sides of the gray-y blue spectrum, and both of them have a light kind of bluish shimmer. I did also grab Holotaco's Shadow Lake to show how bright of a gray it is when it's in the cold state. In the warm state, however, I think it's probably the closest to Prism Parade's Android Dreams, as that's also a white-ish polish with a little bit of blue shimmer. However, I think that Breath of Wind is way more of a true white, while Android Dreams picks up a little bit of a yellow tone due to the blue shimmer. So overall, I do like this one, but I don't love it. I don't really know why.
I think it's because of what you said, where it doesn't feel as airy.
Yeah, it's so icy. I originally grabbed one of the Mooncat thermals in comparison, the Nimbus one,
Nimbus?
from the Boring collection.
Shade. We're keeping that.
From the Simple collection, because it's also a blue to white thermal, and even though this is supposed to be a gray thermal, it really looks like a slate bluey gray. Once again, it feels Water Tribe, or at least like ice, which is Water Tribe. So I think this is gonna get 3 yips out of 5. And here's the whole collection altogether. At first, I didn't think that this collection was going to look as cohesive as it does, because the collection is essentially 4 pairs of polishes. But I actually think it does look pretty cohesive. Now, it's not a beautiful, perfect, amazing color palette, but it does really pull thoughts of the show, which is really what it was trying to do. I think part of the cohesion comes from the fact that elements of each polish are kind of spread throughout the collection. For example, the flakies are kind of described as the same flakies across multiple polishes, or multiple polishes all have this blue shimmer aspect. My only criticism I have is that some of the polishes don't feel super tied to the element or nation that has inspired them. So now that you've seen everything, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do these polishes have you saying "Flamey-o, hot man," or do they make you wish that you were trapped in an iceberg for 100 years? No, not this again. And quick reminder, if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can join as a channel member, so check the link in the description below. Thank you to my Titan Wranglers, but an extra special shout out to the members of the Silver Spurs Club. Love you. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye! Airbending! If this is horrible, I'm gonna be tear bending.